hello, good afternoon and evening from my time zone. It's great to be able to speak with you about a topic that has great interest also from me personally. So deal facilitation or deal mediation. We are now at key number 7, the usage, and the article that the two of you co-authored, expand the value of mediation into deal making. So before we go into the substance, I would like to give each of you the opportunity to introduce yourself. So Veronique, maybe you would like to start?
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much for organizing this interview. My name is Veronique Fraser. I'm a Vice Dean and Professor at the Faculty of Law of the University of Sherbrooke. I teach in the Master in Dispute Prevention and Dispute Resolution. I'm specialized in dispute prevention and cross-cultural dispute resolution.
Thank you. Joan?
Thank you so much, Manon. Such a pleasure to be here. So I am the director of the Institute for Dispute Resolution at the University of Florida Levin College of Law, where I also teach mediation, negotiation, and arbitration. And I'm also a AAA arbitrator and mediator.
Okay, so both of you have an academic background and you're also practicing mediation. So that's a very interesting double perspective to get that on this key. With your key, what is the essence? What do you really want people to get after they read your article?
So Veronique and I agree that the essence of what we are speaking about is at its essence a new application of the mediator toolkit that's been discussed in the other 7 keys. It's actually a really robust overall set of skills, and it includes not only the negotiation skills actually at their fullest in this, but it's also other communication skills, it's listening skills, it's skills related to empathy, it's behavioral economics, it is process design. And these skills become even more important because of the complexity of putting a deal together, which is often even more compelling than resolving a 2-party distributive settlement of a lawsuit.
And is that also the core, the key for you, Veronique, or do you have something to add to this?
Yes, I would add to what Joan is saying, and I would put it in a different way. So often experienced negotiators, they think they can do it by themselves. So they wonder, why should they call upon a mediator to assist them with deal making when they have so much experience? What value really can a mediator bring to proficient negotiators? And what parties have to realize is that there's a unique value of a skilled mediator, and it transcends that of any negotiator just by its impartiality. Mediator can truly help parties focus on building a long-term, long-lasting partnership instead of just focusing on closing a deal today, like Joan said. And there are some topics that are very difficult to bring if you're parties, but the mediator is in the best position to bring them, such as the issue of trust, the importance of transparency, compatibility. Mediators can also help the parties to anticipate conflict and to avoid conflict. Mediators can also lay the foundational principles that will allow the parties to work successfully together in an environment that will be dynamic, where there's constant risk, changes, and also uncharted opportunities that the parties could take upon.
So you're saying the USP actually that the mediator can bring in negotiation processes is on one hand the durability or the future aspect. So it's not just about quickly closing a deal. The other thing is asking about the pink elephant in the room or things that are a little bit difficult to discuss because they're fuzzy, like, okay, how can we trust each other and how can we establish that? and that makes the deal better and also more sustainable. What I also read in your article is that you in fact say that the relationship in itself also needs to be negotiated, and that nearly could be seen as an additional client in a deal mediation or deal facilitation. Can you tell a bit more about that? I think it's a fascinating idea.
Yes, maybe I can start, and Joan, if you want to complement what I say. So I would say, if you think of a partnership, the relationship is really at the core of a partnership. And for a partnership to succeed, the parties have to be focused on the partnership itself, on the we, instead of on their own interests. So we're going even beyond getting to yes, as we all know this literature, and we're going towards getting to we. And I'm citing a book on the subject. So the mediator, this is the role that it can play. He or she can help the parties focus on building this relationship. And it means discussing at the very beginning very difficult issues. It means discussing the values that the partners have, the vision that they have for the partnership, the trust that they have for each other. Different elements that are really at the core, the communications, the process that they will use when they see conflict. I'm sure Joan has tons to add to what I say. So
getting to we, in fact, captures it beautifully. It's a great way of framing it. Joan?
Thank you. Yes, I agree completely. And I also think it's valuable to draw the contrast between, although it's the same skill set, that you are in deal facilitation. If you think of it, it's the prenup. You're bringing these parties together to form what they hope to be a long-lasting relationship, as again contrasted with settling a lawsuit, which is the traditional form of mediation, where that relationship becomes far less important, because at the end of a litigation, even if you mediate early, once you sue somebody, the likelihood of maintaining that relationship is much more remote. So yes, that's at the essence and value that the neutral can bring to the process.
You specifically speak about deal facilitation, Joan. Is that conscious, or
deal? I'm sorry. Oh, deal facilitation.
Deal facilitation instead of deal mediation or transactional mediation. Is that a terminology you prefer to use?
I do prefer the terminology. So I find it's really quite intuitive to think that if a neutral can bring value when there are two parties in a fairly simple distributive negotiation, and that neutral yet can really help the parties by helping them communicate, helping them understand, helping them, coaching them in negotiation theory, and really adds value. But it's still a rather simple negotiation. If you think about the concept of deal facilitation, you're actually dealing with a much more complex negotiation. You might very well have 3 parties, 4 parties. You're not dealing with just a distributive deal where you're money, who gets what share of the pie. But oftentimes money is not even the most important issue. You might have just a variety of issues with different value to different parties, and even the process of managing how this process proceeds because of the complexity. In this situation, look at the value that the neutral can bring. Now, in a sense, it should be intuitive that this deal facilitation, it makes sense to bring this neutral in to do it. But what I find, and the reason I prefer the terminology facilitation, see, I'm getting there. I knew I'd get there eventually. The reason I prefer the terminology is because there seems to be confusion by users. They associate the terminology mediation with a dispute. this has nothing to do with the dispute. So what I prefer to think about it, you could even think about a mediation this way. It is a facilitated negotiation. Instead of a two-party direct negotiation, you bring in the neutral who facilitates the negotiation. And in that sense, this is the same process, although it's completely different, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. And you know, you also wrote something else in your article that the mediator, in fact, is a process specialist, and that is what can be brought in. So can we say that deal facilitation is facilitated negotiation under the guidance of a process specialist? Is that how you would put it?
Veronique? I would say so, yes?
Yes, me too. Yeah, we'll have to cite you, Manon.
Well, I'm citing you guys, or summarizing actually what you wrote in your article. So,
absolutely. I would say that the parties control the result. The only power that the neutral has is process design, and this facilitation skill, the coaching skill, helping them. But they own the result, obviously.
Yeah. It, you know, deal facilitation makes a lot of sense, and it's you know, very useful. It's lots of fun also for us as neutrals to do it. So how can we make it happen? You are concluding and say, okay, on one hand, mediators need to do something, so we need to position ourselves or market ourselves that we also have these kinds of skills. The other part of the equation is how can we mobilize the users? So how can we activate them, or you know, give them a better appreciation of these kinds of processes? What can we do in order to make it happen?
It's a very good question, because human nature, they start looking for solutions when they have problems. And in our field, problems are usually disputes. Most people can get to a deal, but what they don't see is the value they leave on the table. They don't see also this potential of this great relationship they could have created if they were accompanied by a deal facilitator or a deal mediator. So it's a challenge. I think one way I would say is to set examples. So using a deal facilitator has been used in some of the largest industry. For example, the construction industry, they use partnering, which is a form of deal mediation if we want. They have a facilitator that helps to facilitate the partnering process. But there's also other very large companies that are using very innovative way and very highly collaborative way to reach a deal. And I'm thinking of large multinational corporations such as Microsoft, McDonald's, Procter & Gamble, Kaiser Hill, Dell, and the list is pretty long of those large multinational corporations that are using this kind of process. So I think when smaller companies, they hear that the biggest companies are using this process, it can be an incentive to realize that it may help them gain a competitive advantage if they're able to create deals that are very unique partnership that can have values, because long-lasting partnership is one of the best way to create values in business and avoid dispute.
So we need to ask clients to publish about case studies. And
yes.
For you, Joan?
I agree. I think anytime you try to change the status quo or change the existing paradigm, you're going to be met with challenges. And I think the objections that you hear when we introduce something that is so intuitive they're the same objections that we heard 60 years ago. Maybe I didn't hear them 60 years ago, but I heard them 30 or 30 years ago, where people said, you know, I think it goes to the identity of people who have been doing a certain form of work, and you're saying to them, but we can help you. And the answer is, I don't need help, I'm doing this. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of pointing out, I think it helps that we have mediation already in existence, and we can build on that and say, yes, you add value in a different way, just as you add value as a mediation advocate. Investment bankers and in-house counsel, outside counsel add value, tremendous value. The neutral doesn't replace them. It just, you're adding to their skill set. And as Veronique said, you are helping them to not leave money on the table. You're helping them to understand. You're a repository of confidential information, right? So one side can tell you something that as a neutral you can use while not disclosing to the other side. So there can be value in having that neutral, and it's explaining that, even though it's very intuitive, it's still complicated and changing a paradigm.
Yeah, it is, and it is complicated to explain. I mean, mediation is already complicated, yes, but this is even more complicated because you don't have the alternative, like, you know, you go to court and
yes,
you're busy for the next 5 years. So,
yes.
in fact, you were saying that.
Can I interject one thing?
Yeah, sure.
And it's complicated, which is why you use the term facilitation, to explain how it's not, oh, I understand, when there's a dispute, you bring in the deal mediator. No.
Okay, so yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, but that makes it beautifully round and explains very well where you're going.
I would add to this also, and I would say that you use a deal facilitator at first, and when there is a dispute, you can bring the same deal facilitator to mediate the dispute, because he or she is in the optimal position to know the context, what was discussed at the origination of the deal. So this person can become a real-time facilitator that will accompany the party throughout the existence of the relationship.
So Veronique is taking us into what we discussed in anticipation of your question about the future and the 7 keys, which is the concept also of prevention, right? So if you have the deal facilitator using this skill set, as Veronique said, you can have a standing neutral, you can have a standby neutral. Again, other terminology, who can intervene to help keep these parties on the right path. It's so elemental. It goes back to remembering that whether or not you're dealing with huge multinational corporations, at its essence, you're still only dealing with human beings who misunderstand each other and miscommunicate and have cultural differences. That's really taking it to its essence.
I also love the idea of having a neutral standby and standing by. It actually makes it very efficient. So you make a deal, you have somebody who every now and then maybe checks in during the implementation, and then in case something would go wrong for whatever reason, you have a very quick intervention that can be done. So it makes a tremendous amount of sense. You already touched a little bit on future and on the other keys. Was there something from the other publications in the 7 keys, or maybe the entire work, that particularly stood out for you? Or
yeah,
I'd like to go first.
Joan, you want to start?
I can. So what I think is, first of all, it's really such a wonderful, wonderful undertaking, and congratulations to Michael Lees for bringing this all together. This was, and to you as well, Manon, a really huge undertaking. And I think it was really striking about the power of this skill set and of this neutral, and just how versatile it is. And what I was also struck with is, as we move into this age of artificial intelligence and so much of what we do can be replaced by computers, to me, I was struck by how this is an area that is so dynamic and in which judgment and experience are critical thinking, and not likely to be replaced while there may be technology assisted mediation, as a process, this critical thinking piece is not likely to be replaced anytime soon.
So we have a future-proof business model, actually. And for you, Veronique, what's
yes,
coming out?
so reading the other keys, it made me realize that mediation is among some of the oldest professions. It existed probably 1,000 years ago in several societies, as we know, in China and Africa. And the other keys highlighted that it has evolved spontaneously and organically in a fragmented way across disciplines, across countries, fields of expertise, and others. And they also point out the need to integrate the knowledge, to integrate the best practices and the wisdom that we have accumulated over the years for the future growth of the field. The field has an extraordinary versatility. So this is what I saw from all the keys. And one of the key in particular suggested that mediation should be at the core, or should be a core skill for all professions. And I think this is really towards where we're leading. It becomes a core skill, just like communications, for example, but mediation should be one of them as well.
Oh, that is a very nice future outlook, actually. Before we conclude, are there any last thoughts you would like to share with whoever is listening to our videos?
Yes, I think Joan and I have discussed together the future of this field. When you were asking what would be the next new thing for the next generations to come. And we've been both working separately, but now we'll be working together on this area of dispute prevention or dispute pre-escalation. So we think that there's really some work and some thought to be put into this field. Deal mediation or deal facilitation is broaching part of deal prevention, but part of dispute prevention. But I think that we can put much more thought into the subject. And dispute prevention is somehow abstract, so it will need creativity, and it will need to lean on other disciplines to create this brand new field. And I'm just thinking of things like a dispute index that will need to be created in different fields of expertise. We will need to develop the skills of anticipating risk and dispute. We may have to touch part of visual law or simple language. So there's just different skills that will need to be brought together to create this new field of dispute prevention. So we think it's the brand new thing. And Joan will certainly will add to this.
Writing another wonderful aspect of this experience of writing for the 7 Keys was meeting Veronique and finding how we were on separate tracks working on in the same area, and also thanks to Jim Groton, who unites us unbeknownst to us, and thanks to Jim Groton for the work that he's done in this area. And it goes back to the power of this skill set that mediators possess, and that it can be doing so much more. And every disagreement does not have to rise to the level of a lawsuit that then a mediator resolves. That it is possible to take friction, misunderstandings, disagreements. Conflict is inevitable. Litigation is not.
I think that those are beautiful concluding words, and also a great future outlook. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for sharing your further insights in this topic. And I hope that very soon we have the opportunity to see each other again and work together on making this happen in practice.
A pleasure. Thank you so much, Manon. Thank you, Veronique. Nice to see you.
Yes, it was a pleasure to participate in this event. Very nice to see you all and see you next time.